I guess it's that time, and perfect.
Okay, so we are streaming and recording.
Great, let's call the meeting to order then. First order of business is to announce the next meeting, which is July 23rd at 8:30 a.m. in this room. With that, could we swear in the staff, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say I do.
I do.
Thank you. And the board roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Lehman.
Here.
Okay, Mr. Loversage is absent today. Ms. Feniachi here. Okay, Mr. Slanik is absent. Ms. Bartley is absent. And Mr. Beatty.
Here.
Ms. Riddler. Here. Mr. Pongones.
Here.
And Ms. Graf. Here. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Very good. Quorum is declared. Could you give us the overview of the hearing format,
Yes.
please, fellas?
So city staff, that's me, will present the staff report and application materials. Then the applicant will come and sit at the presenter table here, be sworn in and asked to present their materials. Any registered speakers will approach the podium and be sworn in and are provided 3 minutes each to speak. We don't need registered speakers, but maybe some have lumped in. And then commissioners will discuss the case and ask any questions if needed.
Okay, very good. Could I have, the next item is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Could I have a motion to do so, please?
So moved.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Great. The minutes, or the approval is on the floor. Any corrections, additions, deletions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, I guess we're ready for the new applications.
Yes. All right, so the first application is for 101 North Washington Avenue. This is located at the corner of East Bay and North Washington Avenue on the Columbus College of Art and Design's campus, just north of the Columbus Museum of Art. Today, the applicant is seeking commission approval to renovate the existing Battelle Hall building and add a new addition to establish the Center for Creative Collaboration. The proposed work for Battelle Hall includes improving facility access, restoring original primary window openings on the north and south facade, and making repairs to the existing exterior plaster. The new 2-story addition includes vertical architectural bins, new interior finishes, and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection upgrades that will carry into the existing building. The existing parking lot entry to the south of Battelle Hall will be converted into gardens, stuffed seating, plaza space, and a lawn with native plantings. The applicant was last before the commission conceptually at the March meeting where they expressed general support. They recommended that the applicant explore adding a 2nd-story balcony to the southern facade and aligning the building along North Washington Avenue. In response to commission feedback, the applicant noted that a 2nd-floor balcony was considered and studied, as putting learning on display has been a key driver for the project. Ultimately, it was determined to place the highest focus on the indoor-outdoor connections on the 1st floor when considering the overall user impact and project budget constraints. The siting of the building expansion was also considered and studied by the applicant, but it was determined that in keeping with the goal to create a new gateway into campus, they chose to locate the addition closer to Kinney Hall, which creates an outward-facing green space that bookends Gay Street in partnership with the existing quad outside the Lone Crane Center for Design at the corner of Gay and Cleveland, and encourages interaction between the green space across the street of the museum's property. Submitted materials include context photos, a demolition plan, massing diagram, landscape plans, site plan, renderings, floor plan, roof plan, elevations, material details, and sections. So very thorough. And this is essentially what you all saw in March. We do have some new members here, so I'll orient everyone to the site and then I'll leave the applicant to go through the materials. But this is Battelle Hall here and a not parking lot to the south. So they're going to restore some of the exterior here, expose the windows that are behind here, and then add on the expansion, which we'll see. This is the site again, and then you see here the building expansion and the footprint of the existing building, and then the gardens and other programming that will take place. And I'll leave that to the rest. The downtown design guidelines state that downtown's built environment continue to be enhanced and energized with new buildings and additions to existing structures that promote good design, long-lasting building construction materials, and attention to detail, especially at the street level. The guidelines encourage adaptive reuse of existing buildings and recommend that new construction be influenced by the pattern of nearby contributing buildings. They also recommend high-quality materials, ground floor transparency, lighting that minimizes uplighting, and the inclusion of landscaping and plaza space. And as such, the proposal is consistent with the recommendations of the downtown design guidelines.
Belkis, I'm going to recuse here.
All right, thank you, Jen.
Okay, very good. Would the applicants come forward, please? Thank you. Good morning. Would you please identify yourselves for the record?
Hi, I'm Danielle Maludi. I'm the project manager with AECOM, who's doing the architecture for the project.
I'm Brian Kinzelman, Senior Principal with MKSK, responsible for landscape architecture.
Great. Could you raise your right hands? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Why don't we go, we've seen this obviously before, so maybe we could focus on kind of an overview. There's kind of a lot of stuff going on here. You've got a substantial landscape situation, and then you've got obviously a new building section and the renovation of the old building. So I think this is a great project. I think we probably all do. But let's just focus on some of the detail, and then maybe if there were any changes from the last moment, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Derek. Thank you, Commission. Appreciate your time and attention. Refinements and changes, I'll say
And could we put that, thank you, just make sure everybody can hear.
I typically have no trouble being heard, but I've been told. The refinements that we've made since the last time we were here, we're getting into more detail of plant material selection, materials on the site, hardscape. The basic design has not changed from what you had seen before, but to be clear, the landscape in the southeast corner at Washington and Gay Street is a performance landscape. We're using that space for our stormwater management. So it is a modestly depressed basin, but it's planted with native vegetation. So we're not burying any infrastructure. We're supporting that at grade, but that will fill after rain events. That will drain out afterward and become part of the active landscape, not a detention basin, as it were. Should I click through this?
Oh, I'll have the.
Oh, would you please? Maybe an enlarge there. Thank you very much. So you can see in that lower right corner, that is the modestly depressed basin. It's feet, not tens of feet, and it is filled with plant material. So that plant material goes underwater from time to time.
So that'll be below the sidewalk that goes
That's
through
right.
there, right?
That's exactly right. And that diagonal walk that cuts through it is literally the walkway through the garden. And I think that'll be a very romantic way of accessing the building and the outdoor space.
Will the water flow underneath it?
It will flow underneath it. That will either be an earth form causeway, if you will, with the balance pipe below it, or it may very well be an elevated boardwalk. I don't know yet. That's still the detail we're getting into. But that's a great way of getting folks from Broad Street and Gay Street, from that corner at Washington and Gay, into that outdoor space. There's also a commensurate and right angle diagonal that leads from the body of the campus, which is to the west, across and through that open space to Washington Boulevard as well.
I have a question.
Yes,
An
ma'am.
area you were just speaking of where you'll have the stormwater. Is that something that you could actually put, let's say, a public art sculpture or something like that?
Sure could.
You actually could anchor it there.
Yep, sure could. Again, that may go under, quote unquote, underwater by feet, not by tens of feet. So if a piece of sculpture doesn't mind having wet feet for a couple of hours, be great, be wonderful. So you can see in this image, we've got the utility court that is next to Kenny Hall that we are screening off. That has periodic access. So those are sliding gates to give access from Gay Street. But that is the background for accessible ramp, and also a outdoor gathering and study area that you can see better in this view. So Gay Street and the campus as a whole is top left of this image looking to the west. So this is outdoor gathering space for students, for instruction, for casual gathering. And it's exposed as well to Washington and Gay. It's important that to us, that we expose this entire facility, indoor and outdoor, the production of art and the collaboration of art to the outside world. This is the edge of our campus.
A question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, with the exception, I wanted to go back to the Kitty Hall, with the exception of the new, I guess, entrance, is there anything being done to Kenny Hall facade wise, or it's just?
It's not on the exterior.
Not on the exterior. Yes.
Just that new pathway, got it.
This is an image of the connecting walk that is north to south, leading from the body of the campus and from this new yard space to the north through what will be a future parking lot renovation and also a transit stop that will be on Long Street. So our students, faculty, and staff will be able to directly access the campus in this building through this connective walkway. And we've got an opportunity for a small respite study space as well. This is the front yard of the building. Again, we're using a native plant palette. This is not meant to be unkept, but it's not meant to be a manicured landscape either. We want to make sure that this is properly installed culturally. This is virtually the only mown lawn in the whole project, and that's an extension of this outdoor gathering space where students and visitors can gather casually. The furnishings will be provided by the college as we finish the renovation work. And then this is the outdoor makerspace, as we call it, casual collaboration gathering for students. It's accessible, yet it's somewhat protected from Washington Boulevard and the passing of automobiles. But again, the whole intent is indoor function of the building, outdoor function of the facility, and it is truly indoor, outdoor, and exposed to the outside world.
Are there any changes to the building then from the last time we saw it?
No changes, just further refinement of the material selection.
Okay, do you want, what would those refinements be? Do you want to reach those? And then I'd like to come back for just a second or two. I told Belkis, I just could not read the package that you folks sent over. I love what you're doing. I'd love to just spend a couple minutes reviewing some of your plan list on there. We've got selections. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Diane.
You're okay. Belkis, I think we can go, yeah, the floor plans. So, on the elevations, I'll spend a little bit of time here. You can see on the south elevation there, on the left-hand side is the new addition. On the right-hand side is the existing building. Primarily the work on the existing building, as Belkis had mentioned when she was opening up, was the second floor windows have been blocked in over time. So we're reopening those windows, removing the block infill, and putting a new storefront with the simulated divided light. To kind of reflect the original character of the warehouse style windows. We have
Wait a minute, where's the storefront? Oh, it's on the new edition, right?
the windows, the punched opening windows actually will be a storefront system that has a simulated divided light. I can bring this up if you'd like to pass it around.
Meaning stationary sections and
Correct.
level frames. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, wow. Very nice. And is that the color?
Actually, thank you. It's a dark charcoal finish is what we're proposing, which will match the proposed new curtain wall on the new addition. Overall, in the existing building, then too, we're restoring the existing plaster on it and putting a new high-performance acrylic coating on. I have more for you. The intent is to utilize a warm gray finish, similar to the Parthenon, which is that one. Yes.
I was just curious about two weeks ago. Way to show that. So
Now we're bringing it back to the.
haven't heard that one through.
Always happy to.
So it looks like the original building was it's brick underneath. And obviously you can't, that doesn't work. Is that the idea? So you.
We did do some destructive testing to explore the integrity of the open brick. It was determined to be cost prohibitive to really pull that off. We worked with our construction manager partner to kind of do some destructive testing there, and just given the state that the brick was in, we realized that was probably why they covered it up.
So will it look like brick then, or will you see the brick texture underneath, or is it just that would end up a smooth surface?
It'll be a smooth surface, similar to how it is today, a plaster finish. Yep. So the intent is really to keep most of the plaster is in pretty good condition. There's some areas where there's some degradation from water infiltration, so we'll be repairing those areas and then putting a new coating on it.
Okay. And what's the roof? Will that be? I mean, you can't necessarily see it from the street. Will that be like, will it's white or?
It's a white roof, yeah. It'll stay. It's an existing roof that's still under warranty, so we're keeping the existing roof in place and coordinating with the installer, yeah. If we want to go to the next slide, I think.
Clear glass?
Yes, so we have it's called a mid-iron. It's essentially a clear glass that has a little bit of a very minor tint to it to help improve performance, solar heat
And will
gain.
that be on the new section as well as the old?
Correct.
All this is, okay.
If we could go to the renderings then. So essentially that will be on the curtain wall glazing, similar, like I said, the charcoal finish is the same color of the mullions here on the new addition as it will be for the existing building. And then all the doors will be an aluminum storefront that'll match with that same charcoal finish. A pretty simple, material palette here, really just working to kind of integrate the new and the old while allowing some juxtaposition of the overall design and character. I think the rest was just all the extra stuff.
Okay, but Brian, can you give us a couple minutes on what the plan selection is? I
Sure.
want to find out which swamp there, so.
Well, it better known as the stormwater management area,
I've been.
For the record.
for the record.
Swale.
But I appreciate your shortcut, Steve. That is to be, the bottom of this basin is meant to be virtually a monoculture of grasses. This is all, obviously it's nursery stock, but this is all native species in terms of origin. The largest trees we have are these white spire birches, white bark birches. We've got small maple, also sawtooth oak, given their environment. Those likely aren't going to be massive trees over time, but we're looking to create that soft ground cover feel, yet have some height to it. So it isn't an ivy bed. It has some height, and it is hardy enough to go underwater, as I mentioned before, but it's also hardy enough to withstand the drought conditions that those dry basins have once they dry out. That's really the tougher environment for plants. Is
The
dry
bonfires?
nature. Yeah. So those all do very well in terms of drought tolerance. And again, we want to lean toward environmental correctness in terms of its hardiness zone and its origin, where these plants ultimately come from in nature.
People don't realize, but bald cypress is an Ohio native species.
Yes, indeed. It's a beautiful tree. Don't see
Okay.
many of them.
Any other, I'm not trying to monopolize the conversation. Anybody else have a question or comment?
I have a couple of comments. So I love what you've done. It's beautiful. And I just had a question. The green space that you're creating in the front, you talked about how you really want there to be a connection between the two. And I'm wondering if you had thought about, like in the winter months or when it's dark out, if there's a way, you're creating these nice sculptural site pieces. I think if they look like rocks where you're sitting on those site furniture, if you thought of maybe lighting or other techniques so that when it's dark out or in those months where, it's gray and you're not really using that space outside, that it still seems activated and engaging.
Is the slide in here, Belkis, with some of the exterior lighting?
Yeah, we do have a lighting slide.
It's just after the planting slide, I believe. There you go.
Jane, a great comment. We've got two large cluster columns, which are meant to do that area lighting. I think that may speak largely to your point, where we can aim those spots, if you will, from a single pole on the seating area that's to the west, and also areas within that collaboration courtyard. So we can accent, if you will, with aimed light on specific features, trees, furniture, hardscape, whatever it is we so choose. But that's also meant to be area lighting for outdoor events. So those are adjustable and dimmable. In the magenta color are a series of column lights, which accentuate that crossing path that gets from the body of campus to the edge of campus. And then also we have low down lights, which light that connecting walkway that's from Gay Street that goes to Long as well. So I think it's,
About the north-south corridor?
yeah, the ones in the middle, the orange dots.
Yes, okay.
So there are area lights further to the north of that, but with renovation over time of the parking area and the transit stop, that'll be a well-lit, very safe and comfortable way of getting from the transit stop and the parking lot to the body of campus.
That was the other question, that as that corridor going north and south becomes narrower, you have lighting there as well?
We do. And there's, what we show in one of those images is a green screen. That is a modestly elevated wall with the utility court behind, and we're extending that with a green screen so that that's a comfortable and attractive walkway. So it'll be lit further to the north.
That all sounds good, thank you.
What's your pavement material, by the way?
Cast in place concrete, buff wash and scored concrete, and probably light broom finish as well.
Are there other questions? What's the pleasure of the group then, please? Anyone want to make a motion to approve? Put it on the
Well,
table?
if no one has anything else, there was one more thing I wanted to.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had brought it up a little bit, I had touched on it in the last meeting, but that eastern facade, where you have, it looks like a garage door or a service door, and it looks like that's Boone Street or Boone Alley that terminates there. I'm just wondering if you have pedestrians or even, I don't know, vehicles or travel west on that street, if you've thought about, I don't know, doing something there where it looks somehow designed, whether, I don't know, maybe that garage door is red, or maybe the, I guess, is that your stucco finish?
Yeah, that's
The existing building, or I don't know, maybe there's change in texture, or maybe some subtle pattern, or something where that looks like it, that, because that is, it can possibly be a prominent facade because of your pedestrian traffic, and it's part of that campus. So I'm just wondering if that might be an opportunity to explore, just something that enhances that facade and doesn't make it look like it's just a back door.
That's actually a great comment, and I think you maybe read our minds. So the campus is also planning to undertake an overall kind of branding and wayfinding study. And so we've discussed this building and how, although, the north side of the building as well as the east kind of seem somewhat of the back door because of where the new addition is, those sides, those facades are also very important. So the campus or the college is elected to kind of defer any work as part of this project associated with that and incorporate it into the overall campus branding study so that they can take a comprehensive look at their whole kind of portfolio and take an approach at that time. So, but yes, and they were exactly thinking the same thing.
Okay.
So
Very
great
good.
comment.
Thank you.
And Jana, anything else?
Oh, nothing else.
Another comment. No, I think that the plaza design is great, very strong design. I think the material palette is lining up very nicely. I guess question about the building. I do like the storefront infill panels that you described. Considering, the southeast exposure, having a lot of glazing, I see some vertical bins on there, and I see it's a, just like a big open gathering. I guess what other considerations have you thought about for occupant comfort and solar exposure?
So we've worked to kind of identify a high-performance glazing to kind of enhance that facade. I think there's some buildings on campus that struggle with some solar heat gain, so that's been a very big focus of ours, as well as providing window coverings on the interior. So we're continuing to explore the glazing to make sure that we have properly addressed solar heat gain as well as glare.
Okay, other questions? Could I have a motion to approve, please?
Motion to.
Oh, the project. Second. You move, oh, okay. And there's a second from Autumn then. Okay, good. So the motion is on the floor. Any more questions or comments? Anything from the audience? Any more questions or comments? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thanks.
Thank
It looks great. I think it's fun. I think I love these green spaces. We need to have a few of these in the city of Columbus, downtown area, and I think it's really good. And I like some of the landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great project.
And I like it, and I like using the old building. It's really fantastic. I actually like the kind of gritty kind of feeling. The CCAD is not as much as we like to compare it to the fire. It's not highly, highly refined stuff. I mean, we have some concrete walls and all the way over twisting around the corner to the lowest crane building there and everything. I like that in itself.
We're working on it.
Good, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Say it again?
Yeah, that's from all there.
Okay. So, next week, we all get worried about not parking.
Oh,
That's a long way from.
Yeah, it might be this. It might be. It's going the other direction. Okay. Go ahead, folks.
Yep. So this next case is for 21 East State Street, which is located at the corner of South High and East State Streets and is known as the Fifth Third Center, which has been undergoing exterior improvements since 2021. In 2022, facade improvements to the 1928 Beggs building were completed to address water infiltration and deterioration of existing stone aggregate panels, otherwise known as SAP. Work included replacing portions of the existing stone aggregate panels with a water drainage, is it EIFS? I never know. EIFS assembly to match the original color and aesthetic of the building, providing sealant repairs at fenestrations, repairing cracked and damaged terracotta units, and repairing built-in gutters. The applicant was able to secure a permit for this work in 2021 through the Building and Zoning Services Department, but at the time was never informed of the need to obtain a COA through the Downtown Commission. The original permit expired before a final inspection could be scheduled, and upon recently reapplying for the permit for the final inspection, the applicant was notified via COA that a COA is first required. Thus, the applicant is now seeking approval for the already completed exterior work described above. Submitted materials include a site plan, floor plans, elevations, and building sections and details. And I'll quickly go to their drawings because it's a little detailed and hard to see. But this is the site plan. So this is the corner of High and State. And the Beggs building, it's not the one on the corner, but it's just next to. So that's the one that's the section that was built in 1928. And these are the floor plans, but what really applies here is the elevation, which I'll show you. So we have the base, right, the middle and the top. And if you zoom in to the top, this section, so all this cross hatching, that's where the stone aggregate panels were. And that's what they took off and then put the EIFS on. So it's really just this sort of tippy top portion where that work happened. And of course, beneath they did tuck pointing and did some restoration work for that water infiltration. But this is where, that replacement happened. And again, this is done, it's sitting over there today. So in a way, this is sort of a retroactive approval for work that was already done. But this is where it says, remove and replace existing style cladding and fenestration systems with specified water drainage system.
Well, because I have a question.
Yeah.
So the terracotta part of the building, which is below that, is that the original 1928? I mean, I know it's
I believe so, yes, yeah.
I mean, I
So
know some of it's been restored, but it's.
right, so they repaired that.
I'll tell you what, let's, if we can swear the applicant, maybe he can answer that question
Yeah,
for
and
us. Can we do that?
I'm just gonna
Let's you
finish
finish
my
up in a
report,
second,
yeah.
and then we can ask that question.
Yes. So with the analysis, the downtown design guidelines recommend for contributing buildings to be conserved and rehabilitated. Further, they call for the use of high quality and durable building materials such as brick or traditional masonry with front facing facades that have a higher level of design. And as such, the proposal is generally consistent with the downtown design guidelines. Staff recommends that the commission discuss the use of EPIS as a replacement material for the stone aggregate panels, given that the work is already complete. Thank you.
Are you done then?
Yes.
Okay, and you're here for the applicant?
I am, yes. Alan Hips with Wish Janney Elsener. We're
I'm sorry, did you say your name again?
Alan Hips with Wish Janney Elsener, who's a designer and enclosure professional that consulted on the job and did the construction documents.
Okay, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
So say I do. Thank
Say I
you.
do.
Thank you very much. Okay, there's a question. That's a good question. Fill us in on what's original and what got replaced, please, for a second.
So the building was originally conceived in 1928, I believe is the date that you saw. That was the terracotta portion from, I believe it's I call it 13th floor, but 14th floor
Where
down.
that dashed line is up there.
Yes,
Okay.
so from there
From
down,
there down is original terracotta from 1928 building.
correct, and other stone components that make up
Yeah,
the lower
yeah.
portion water table. If you go to the side elevation, they had added a bay in the 1990s when they did the upper addition. So if you see the original terracotta portion there on, I believe it's the east elevation, other drawing there.
To the
Thank you,
left.
yeah. So you have the multiple bays of terracotta. Those were restored. We did ceiling replacements, tuck pointing, essentially tied back or replaced units that were deteriorated or needed replaced. So full restoration on that. The SAP panel, stone aggregate panel, it's kind of a rusticated, very thin panel that they used for their cladding in the 90s edition, which was the bay and then everything above. That panel had deteriorated over time. It was contributing to a significant amount of water infiltration into the building. It was predominantly a single line of defense, about a ½ inch with a skim coat directly fastened to the structure of the building. We were brought in 2019 to do an investigation. That's how we usually get involved in work. If we've got a lot of water leaks, we want to retrofit the building and make it perform well. So we did a study and quite a few investigations on the cause of the infiltration. A lot of it was basically the interface of the SAP panel and the sloping curtain wall above with all the glazing, and then just the panels themselves had deteriorated, the base finish had fallen off.
So I'm not, go ahead.
Can I ask you, so, the original 1928 building, that was all the terracotta, and even the SAP that's on the top, was that originally terracotta too?
No.
Oh, it was not.
The building stopped at essentially the roof of the 12th floor.
Literally
Okay.
stop just the.
Just stopped right there. So in the
Is
90s,
that because they didn't finish it or what? That doesn't sound right.
I believe they overbuilt a roof, so they removed the roofing material, used it as the floor, and then added the additional 3 floors in the 90s to gain that kind of penthouse balcony space.
So that stuff that's there in the hash area there, that was not part of the original building.
No, it was not.
It looks like something similar to that was there, but maybe it was different.
The entire construction type of the building is different.
Do
Between
you have a
the terra-
picture of the old building by any chance?
It was in the packet. I think there was a photo.
That's what I was wondering. Do you have it in here?
I remember. Was that?
I thought I had seen one as well, so I'm just asking if we.
Don't recall that. No.
So the difference between the drawings and what is there now is quite unremarkable in change. There's the profiles, the pediments, everything stays within the same kind of language, same shape. That was what led to the selection of our finished material that we used to overclad with, was that we could get essentially a thinner profile with a high performance.
And IFAS is what you used to do.
Yeah, we used the drainage eaves product, which Anybody that's been around EIFS for extended period of time knows the horror stories of it from the past. It was a barrier product. It was essentially a European product that was brought over here. It was installed incorrectly over our thin wood structures. Led to a lot of deterioration behind it. We no longer do that. We put a weather barrier behind it and then use the cladding as kind of a UV protection, bulk water shedding material.
Distinguish between the cladding and what I think I hear you saying is the EIFS, the regular EIFS then.
So
You use it as a cladding material then?
correct. So a barrier EIFS systems essentially uses the
Barrier what system?
barrier EIFS, exterior insulation finish system.
That's the EIFS?
Yes. That's what
Okay. Okay,
EIFS is exterior insulation finish system.
okay,
So it's essentially a thickness of insulation that's applied to a building and then coatings, acrylic coatings applied over it to give you the finish and durability of the insulation. Historically, that was just directly adhered or directly attached to structure behind with no backup barrier. The applied.
so the insulation material was in effect a sheathing, and then you put this finish coat over it.
Correct,
And
which
then
is
gives
your
you-
waterproofing,
Okay.
which is then
And
subjected
that
to environmental
is
check.
really not a very good.
Correct.
system, you're saying,
You have
okay.
in your packet, there's also a picture of the section of the EVIS system and then the existing system.
We do. We have quite a few
So we could look at that.
demolition details with new details.
So you replaced what was there, right?
Correct. So we
And you
removed
took out this SAP stuff and you put your EIFS stuff in,
Mhm.
just matching what was there. Is that the idea?
Predominantly, yes. There is an additional thickness to the insulation that was added. The minimum thickness is 3/4,
But from the exterior view, it's the same.
negligible change, the 3/4 of an inch that was added.
Okay, well, you wouldn't get to see that. Okay,
So the existing SAP was essentially the thickness of the sheathing that we put back. So that yellow material there with the green that's cut back.
wow, interesting.
It was a 1/2 inch panel, just sealed, skimmed over, and the facer was falling off of it. So we put back 5/8 inch dense glass exterior sheathing, a weather barrier that's of the system of the EIFS that we put on. The vertical scores that you see with the adhesive provide the drainage path behind, so any water that can get through that exterior layer can drain out. It provides a watertight system for the building at the level of the green and then protects it from thermal and UV on the exterior. In our design study, we had considered a direct applied finish system, which would essentially be just the outer coating on the sheathing. But that doesn't provide the redundancy that the owner was looking for. They wanted to have a system that was essentially a watershed and then a backup system. So they didn't want to have the water infiltration that they had been experiencing moving forward.
Okay, now let's spend some time talking about the design of the thing. We're really, with all due respect, I mean, we want it to be structurally well done. And one of our criteria is that we use high quality materials. By the way, the EIFS does not tend to fall into that category for the downtown district. But I think if you could talk to us a little bit, I see medallions on there, I see forms and shapes. Is that supposed to mimic, you're just matching what was there? Is that the idea? Where, and how do you, what are those medallions made?
So the medallions were a GFRC, so fiberglass kind of form that was removed, preserved, and then reapplied. So all of the heads and medallions were put back on as part of the project. The forms and shapes of kind of the undulation of the facade was recreated in the EIFS that was applied using either different thicknesses of foam or additional framing or sheathing.
And the heads and everything, you made those too, then, and matched those?
The heads up top were not EIFS. Those were, again, a fiberglass product that was reattached.
Yeah.
So looking at a before and after photo, which we didn't put in the presentation, there's negligible change from a passerby. The only thing that we might have gained would be a 3/4 inch shadow line between the terracotta and the EIFS system above. So that was to get that additional, the build up.
Sorry. So knowing what you know about EIFS today, the original EIFS that you brought over from Europe and we're using, not you, you understand.
Yeah.
And the new product, what would you describe as the previous life cycle of that product to the new life cycle of the product?
So
Meaning, how many years is the old product gonna last? How many years is the new product
the
gonna
face
last?
material of the old product would last as long as the face material of this. The problem with the old system was that it would deteriorate the backup system. So it would rot the sheathing and then would fall off.
Yeah,
This system, you're looking at probably 40 to 60 years before you need a retouch or recoat. The product is rather repairable, and the color way that we chose for it to match the existing is kind of a paler tan. That doesn't bleach out in the sun. I know that a lot of people think that Eve's fades. That's usually when you use a bright blue or a very vibrant color, but when you pick a muted, more appealing color to a city infrastructure, then that color stays.
got it. So barring any sort of physical damage to the thing itself, a dent, piercing of the surface, do you think the life cycle of the materials 40 to 60 years? Is that?
So that would be conservative, would be 40, because
Right.
you're there's no impact at that height. The birds aren't going to be hitting it hard enough. Hail is a negligible issue for it. So your risk of impact is very slight at that elevation. We do have some that comes down a little lower around the parking area, and that's all protected with bollards, but that was just to bring the same material to ground. I believe there are some stone pediments down there. So even if there is impact damage, the material can be easily replaced. You can cut out a section and put back new and feather a panel.
So in the future, that's one more follow-up.
Absolutely.
In the future, when we see this material come to us, whether we think it's approvable or appropriate, appropriate downtown or not, what questions do we ask to understand whether it's the system you're describing, this new and improved EFS, compared to what we all consider and have seen in our marketplace, I don't know, Steve, since the 90s, start to emerge as a product that seems to fail quite a bit. What question do we ask?
What's your drainage system? What's the drainage backup? What's your tie into your weather resistant barrier. That's base standard code now. You need a weather resistant barrier in the building. So this provides that backup. And then you see the drainage details as you go through the set. If you were just looking at insulation or board directly on a material with no weather resistant barrier, that's what you'd be looking out for.
So is this a different material than the exterior, the skim coat on this thing?
It is. This is an
What
acrylic
it was back in the good old
versus
days?
a cementitious.
I'm sorry.
The coating on this is a two-part acrylic or a two-coat acrylic. So you put a base coat and embed a mesh, which provides reinforcement to the surface to prevent cracking, and then a top coat of a colored acrylic material. Versus the original material, which had no fiber reinforcement in it, and it was a cementitious product. The stone aggregate panel was composition of kind of fiber cement.
Yeah, okay. Is the glass on these drawings, that's all the same? You didn't touch that, right?
The only thing that we did to the glass was sealant repair and replacement and some silicone booting.
Around the
The
frames.
glass remained predominantly in place. I don't believe we replaced any of the IGs on this. We did rebuild the gutters, which are the three center higher areas. There's kind of a setback gutter that we had considered eliminating due to the leaks, but we were able to integrate a new roof with the new weather barrier and with the repairs of the window system, be able to integrate that, prevent leakage there, and preserve the kind of articulation of the facade.
I had a question. So I know years ago with EFS, one of the main problems was, the drainage and the fact that water would get locked in and there'd be moisture problems and the deterioration. So it sounds like you're saying that because of that, the I guess installation and the drainage recommendations have changed, and that there's much more sophisticated ways of working with EFS and making sure that it's drained properly.
Your statements are correct, yes. So we provide a holistic barrier to the building prior to putting any system on. I do a lot of enclosure consulting, and I like to say that, standing there in your skin, you're watertight. Well, that's what we do to a building now, is that as you've got your barrier, your weather barrier is your skin. You just put the clothes on to stay warm and keep the water off of your skin so that you're not turning into a prune, essentially. So that's what we do with the eaves. Keep it warm. because you're adding insulation and then you keep the sun off and also the bulk water away from the barrier. Most weather barriers have a 6 month to a year exposure to UV. Don't want it to get sunburned, so you put a finish over it. It's the way most modern construction's done.
We were deciding on selecting EFS for this project. Were you considering other materials as well?
We did. So we did a structural analysis of the building to make sure that, to determine what weight we could add. We had discussed GFRC panels, which would be 2 inches thick about, which would have provided a bigger overhang shadow.
And what is a GFAC?
Glass fiber reinforced concrete. So it's a more rigid panel. It's a bit deeper in profile. It too needs a drainage system behind it. So you would add 5/8 and 2 inches and we'd be overhanging quite a bit more. That would be a redundant system, but it would have added considerable weight just due to the panel thickness. Then we had considered, like I said, a DEEF system, which is direct applied finish system, which is more a traditional stucco, but that doesn't provide the redundancy or crack resistance of the EAF system.
What was that system?
EAF's direct applied finish system. It's essentially a modern stucco that's applied directly over a board. It would have been very similar to the original SAP, just with an acrylic versus cementitious coating.
So how does the installed product compare to like color and texture of the existing?
So texture is relatively consistent. It might be a little smoother, more consistent. Color, we were within several shades of a match. It's within that creamy tan that everybody's used to seeing in the.
How did you folks manage to get by the COA process here?
That I don't know. I believe it was a COVID project, so
It's a which?
we submitted during COVID. So I think it was the, I don't know how we fell through the cracks. I think that everybody was working kind of remotely and the remoteness led to a breakdown in the system.
And that was my question. I was gonna direct it to the staff. Did we evaluate that gap to make sure that it doesn't reoccur? Or was this just a one-off?
This is really a one-off.
Okay.
This is kind of the first project that I've seen like this. It's fallen through the cracks. I have applicants all the time that try to go to BZS and get their permit, even if it's for a new roof. And then they're directed to me and they're like, I didn't know I had to do this. And it's like, well, you're in downtown, and yes. So this is really a one-off.
We were in no way trying to avoid coming to the committee.
We're not suggesting. I'm just curious about it for our standpoint. And I must say, I might be the one here today that's been on this, in this group the longest, and I almost don't remember, I don't remember any specific times when there has been something that got by, at least recently. There used to be, we had a problem for a while, and that problem, this could go back 10 or 15 years anyway, when we wanted to make it clear to the building department that anything involving a permit in the downtown zoning district had to come by this group first.
Correct.
So that's been clarified for a number of years. So that was just a question.
Yeah, and I've been at the city for almost 6 years and I had one case in East Franklinton where this happened. There was a minor building repair where they had new staff and the new staff person in BZS didn't know and, so they didn't direct them, but it's pretty airtight now.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Sure. It looks like on some of the side elevations that you're using a lot more of the material, like here we're showing it just on the top portion, but then I think I saw on some of the sides, there's, like over there, is that the?
Yes, that's the east that comes down to grade. That's the full replacement of the SAP that was done in the addition. So that was
And that's basically kind of hidden side almost.
correct. That's between the State Theater there.
Yeah.
And then on the other elevations, can you show the extent of the EFS or?
So that was only done at the openings on, I believe this is the south. This faces a parking garage. Parking garage comes up to probably about the 5th floor. But the eaves is only done at the fenestration openings. The SAP remained in the middle.
Okay.
There were no leak concerns at that location, so we left the material
So on this facade, where is the ephes? Can you show? I'm gonna look.
The
Just on
sides
these
where the
two
windows are.
sides.
Correct.
And
And then,
going all the way down?
the one hits a roof at about the second floor level, one that's kind of tucked into a corner of the building. This elevation shows it that the whole building is kind of standing out in space. There's a parking garage to about fourth floor, and then the third building kind of wraps around the portion that would be to screen left.
Then are you, when you're using it in larger expanses, are you creating score lines? Like how are they, is that applied? Is it a panel? Like how are you using the?
So
you're applying-
every other floor has the drainage outlet for the system. And then at every floor line, there's a movement joint. So there's a through flashing at alternating floors and then a sealed joint to allow for interstory movement within the system. That would be a line that I believe was there in the SAP originally. It was a line that they had revealed as a sealant joint. So any line that we put in was directly intent on matching what was there in the SAP.
So it looks like it looks like it's panelized. I mean, how does that look? Because you're going to have the joints or the.
Yeah, so we did the more ornamental areas. So that's done with either a buildup of the material, so additional insulation thickness, or there were some undulations in the framing and sheathing behind it that we directly reflected.
And then the last question I have is, do you anticipate more of the SAP having to be replaced in the future?
We don't, based on our study.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ask if there are any more questions, and then I'm going to ask if someone would make a motion, and let's discuss for a second. What's everybody want to do with this? What are your thoughts?
It's built and.
Well, I think, by the way, I don't like that going down that road necessarily. Although I think, in this case, I think our applicant has been pretty well grilled here about this, the material and the process, and I think it was frankly very carefully done. So from my standpoint, I'm inclined to just kind of move forward here with this thing. I don't know if anybody has a different thought. And by the way, I don't want to cut anybody off if anybody has any more questions.
Well, only one other.
Okay, go ahead.
It looks like, where you're using the ephes more extensively, it looks like that is stopping, that's stopping on the fourth floor. You don't have any situations where it's going all the way down to the ground level, or maybe a few.
The south side.
This area is the closest it comes. There's a drive-in area for the lower parking, and there's kind of heavy sandstone buttresses there. So you're down, what would that be, 6 to 8 feet off the ground?
But what you're showing, that condition is the only area where it comes that low.
Yes, that's about our head height that we get to with the eaves.
Okay, thanks.
And I know we usually do challenge like the use of this material, but I think just the application seems like the details are well paid attention to, cost effectiveness of the product.
The weight of
Yeah, at this scale.
Questions, comments, anything from the audience? You get to ask the question if you want to. What's the pleasure of the group, please?
Motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
second.
Okay, we'll put it on the floor. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, thank you for coming back in. And I guess this makes you official, so
Appreciate it. Thank you.
thanks.
I'll be in touch.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else?
Good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, you too. Anything else for us, Bill? Oh, we have to approve your
The staff approval.
staff
The
approval.
record.
Yep. Any questions about any of these staff approvals on here? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve these staff approvals, please?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Jenna.
Second.
And a second, thank you. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, very good. I didn't comment for Belkis. I don't know if anybody else has this problem. I couldn't read these applications. I got them, they're so small, you know, they're shrinking a sheet this big. Now, I realize all you architects here, okay, of which I am not one. I don't,
Are you able to, on your, what device do you look at this?
on my computer.
Are you able to enlarge it? So, for
No,
example,
I can't enlarge it.
so you're not able to like
No.
touch on it and then.
No,
If you.
not on my
on your computer.
And so,
PDF, Adobe
is that how you
PDF
get
Reader.
to it?
Yeah, you can download for free, Adobe PDF Reader.
Okay,
And then when you open up the drawings, it's a PDF document. So
and then I would be able to expand it.
there's a zoom function, yeah, so, I mean, I just use a shortcut, but if you hit control on your keyboard and then you do the roll in, you can.
Yeah, I see, my computer doesn't have.
See how far you can zoom in.
Open it, or do you?
I just go to the, which you sense it out.
So you go to the box and you open
Oh.
it, but maybe you need to download.
Download it.
Download it, so
Okay,
when you go to the box, there'll be something and it'll say download and you just click that. And then it'll say show in folder,
okay,
and you open it there,
okay,
and then from there you'll be able to expand it.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
If I wouldn't be able to zoom in, I couldn't read anything.
Okay,
Blind,
okay,
you know,
yeah,
so.
You haven't been sitting here trying to get this close?
It's a good question about format, right? Because, you know, we see a lot of large 30 by 42 drawings
Yes.
issued. And if you like to print your stuff out to review it, I mean, you're not.
Well, and here's the other thing too, how many pages do they submit? Some of these things are vast. So I'm wondering if it would be helpful for us, and this is a conversation thing, we're gonna need to make a decision on it today. But I wonder if it would be helpful if they could focus on, for example, we had the CCAD thing, you know, if you could focus on maybe an elevation on the building, on on some of the landscaping things. Even if it's 3 or 4, as though you were gonna do a presentation to this group. You kind of focus on a certain thing. And the same thing with this. I mean, we don't need to see the whole building perhaps, but if we could just see that top thing where they were looking for approval on what they were gonna do on this. You know, a little synopsis almost
I don't know, I mean.
might be helpful.
There's been too many times that either questions from this panel or either from the audience have broadened, I don't say broadened the scope, but what needs to be seen. And so, you know, sometimes it seems like it's too much, but I think there's been other instances, I can't think of a specific example right now, where being able to see the streetscape or the whole building or from different angles or other things like that has been very, very helpful. And, you know, if we narrow the guidance on what we want to see, people could get it wrong or misinterpret, or they're taking up more staff time, but well, what do you mean? It's only gonna do this. So I would be, at this point, hesitant to try to, you know, narrow down what people are pursuing.
Maybe one thing is that, you know, because I agree with that, but I also think like if something is 60 pages and someone doesn't quite know where to begin, what to focus on, maybe, let's say the whole, it's all, you know, submitted and we have it, but maybe certain sheets that are, you know, really crucial to concentrate on might be flagged. Or might, you know, have like a certain dot on them or a color code, so that if somebody is overwhelmed by the 60 pages and doesn't know where to begin, they know, oh, these are the 10 pages that are going to be the most prevalent. And as I'm reviewing them, if I want to look at this and that, it's right in my packet too. So it's there, but then at least you sort of know, maybe know where to focus. I don't know if that would help.
I'm happy to call out pages like that as well, and typically for the planning region, we require a site plan, all elevations. If landscape is affected, we require landscape drawings. If it's going for action, then we require, you know, building details of the fenestration, we require lighting, diagrams, material details. So we require that if it goes to any one of our bodies for action where you're voting on it. We don't require 100% CD sets, of course, I get those later. But those are required, and then we just zoom. Zooming is our friend. Everybody zooms in. But if it is a larger packet, I'm more than happy to put like a red dot or something on the pages that should be focused on to alleviate, what can be sometimes an overwhelming drawing set. So,
And then that also gives us the flexibility and we can look at the whole thing as well. It's all
Yeah.
there.
yeah, because
We have to have the whole thing for
Right.
sure. I mean, no question. Because that's what we approve, and we approve these details, and we want to make sure that
right.
the details get built into the project.
And sometimes when you're even just looking at the exterior and you're trying to make a comment on what the fenestration is like, or what, something else, sometimes you have to look at the floor plan to understand what's the function inside the building, to even know if what you're going to comment on about the exterior and if it makes sense. So it's good to have.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
But
I'm
very
just
good points for.
throwing my thought out. I'll work harder
Get that,
to figure out what I'm looking at.
PDF reader, zoom in.
Yeah,
I have a question, or just something, wonder what everybody thinks about this. We do have a number of cases where the EFS is coming up. And I know that there have been a lot of improvements in EFS, but I'm not really that current on what in the market now, what would be a good alternative? Is it some fiber cement panel? Is it something else? What is really the cutting edge material that would also be as cost effective, as flexible? And so that when we get something like this, let's say that hasn't been built yet, we could comment and say, have you considered this? If you're concerned about weight, cost effectiveness, texture, this is something to explore. Sometimes I feel I don't know enough about the details of the EFS to really know how to, make an informed decision on the level that I would like to, or even speak intelligently to the applicant about what would be a good alternative that they might want to think about.
do we specifically discourage? Do we mention it? Do we specifically
No,
discourage these?
It's not mentioned, specific materials are not mentioned in the guidelines. The guidelines only call for high quality durable materials such as traditional masonry. So brick, stone.
Well, I think we're not, I think this was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I learned something about
I
it.
did too.
My impression of EFS has been something that, we wouldn't want to have necessarily, and, but it's like so many other things. I mean, the technology changes, and guess what? All of a sudden, it could be it makes sense to me, it could be a useful, product. So, are you guys?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
EFS should rebrand itself, because I
Yeah.
feel like it's just a negative connotation, but the texture options, material quality, they're all a lot better options. We do use EFS.
And
So I
think
guess-
you all ask great questions in terms of, debating on the quality of the product. I think someone talked about what is the lifespan of this current product, 40 to 60 years. I mean, I'm not an architect, but that sounds like a pretty long time, talking about drainage, how water could impact it. So, I think all those are great questions. If you do have a material that, hasn't been high quality in the past, asking those questions to clarify, to make your own determination. I think that's very wise, and I appreciated your approach today.
And frankly, this weight thing can be a real issue when you get up in the air in some of these buildings.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I do definitely see like for the upper portions of the building or sometimes mid portions, but sometimes I worry about, at that ground level, how that.
I agree. I think more like panelized systems, like a brick panel or stone panel should be considered at that pedestrian.
Right. But I do, like everything I've read about the EFS more recently, it does seem like they've come a long way with the drainage and trying to address the problems. And then different EFS some have more aggregate in them, some have less, have some, mixed with natural stones, some don't, so I think it's come a long way.
Yeah.
As well, but I agree, the rebranding would help, because there's a real stigma with it.
I need clarity with the EFS. He mentioned a backup drainage. So was that in addition to a drainage that normally comes with the EFS? Or was he doubling down, like, you need?
I thought he was saying like almost the sheathing had like grooves in it.
Correct,
He let
correct,
it come out at the bottom.
correct, yes,
And
and it was
that's
a
what,
photo of that,
yes, right.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what I took to be the,
Yeah, there is an initial water barrier, and on top of that initial water barrier, there is some other material with those groovy things, and then if this fails, the water goes in the groovy things and.
So that was
Very
the backup.
technical term, but then it drains off, and then
Okay.
you have the EVIS outside on top of that.
Got it.
and we like Riviera best.
So, great
Good, well,
conversation.
very good. Well, that was interesting. Gosh, we got it done early. Anybody have any jokes or anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing no objection, we're adjourned.
All right. now
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you. You did pretty well today. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, considering we're in the middle of